Thank you, everyone doing service, making the meeting possible. My name is Andy. I'm a very grateful, recovered, but definitely not cured alcoholic. And it genuinely is a privilege and an honour to be doing this. We are going to be looking at the doctor's opinion tonight. I don't know how far through it we will get because there is so much in this. You know, what I love about the doctor's opinion is how Bill described it. A bit later on, he wrote a letter in 1953, which got published, which got reprinted in this book, Language of the Heart. And Bill refers to the doctor's opinion here. He talks about how they were going out doing the Oxford group thing and focusing on the spiritual side of the program and finding that that wasn't getting through to alcoholics. And it was Dr. Silkworth that said, you really need to hit them with the medical side first. And Bill went on to realize, he wrote this, we weren't using that medical sledgehammer that Dr. Silkworth so providentially had given us. And I think that's really what this is. For me, going through this particular part of the book was what introduced me to what was actually wrong with me. I had no idea when I got here. I knew I had a problem with alcohol. I didn't even have a desire to stop necessarily. I wanted to stop the damage. But this, when someone took me through it, really started to help me see. And I will say, I went into this with a lot of contempt when I got here. I said, oh, doctor's opinion? Yeah, easy to get one doctor's opinion on something, isn't it? Because I bet I could go out and find one doctor to back anything up. I mean, you know, we saw doctors being paid by ad agencies in the 50s to say smoking was good for you. So it'd be easy to find one doctor, right? So I did my own research. And what you will actually find is that over the years, countless doctors have backed this up. What was unique about Silkworth was that he was one of the first really to identify this as an allergy. Anyway, let's get into this. Starts off, we of Alcoholics Anonymous. So again, multiple authors. This isn't just Bill speaking at this point. This is the first 100. Believe the reader will be interested in the medical estimate of the plan of recovery described in this book. Convincing testimony must surely come from medical men who have had experience with the sufferings of our members and have witnessed our return to health. A well-known doctor, chief physician at a nationally prominent hospital, that was Towns Hospital, specialising in alcoholic and drug addiction, gave Alcoholics Anonymous this letter. And there are actually copies available of the original letter, which was dated 27th of the 7th, 1938. To whom it may concern, and in brackets there I've written to me, because it concerns me. If you're an alcoholic, if you think you've got a problem with alcohol, if you think you've got a problem with drinking, this letter's going to concern you. I have specialised in the treatment of alcoholism for many years. In late 1934, I attended a patient who, though he had been a competent businessman of good earning capacity, was an alcoholic of a type I had come to regard as hopeless. And here he's talking about Bill Wilson. In the course of his third treatment, and Bill had 4 treatments, on the third of these treatments, Bill started to have a realisation, but he had to come back and have another treatment and complete things. But in the course of his third treatment, he acquired certain ideas concerning a possible means of recovery. As part of his rehabilitation, he commenced to present his conceptions to other alcoholics, impressing upon them that they must do likewise with still others. This has become the basis of a rapidly growing fellowship of these men and their families. This man and over 100 others appear to have recovered. And there again, once again, we're using that word recovered. I personally know of scores of cases who were of the type with whom other methods had failed completely. And when he says scores there, that's something, we don't use that term so much today. A score is 20. He says scores, so it's plural. So we know we're talking about at least 40. So he personally knows at least 40 cases who were of the type for whom others had failed completely. These facts appear to be of extreme medical importance because of the extraordinary possibilities of rapid growth inherent in this group. They may mark a new epoch in the annals of alcoholism, And I had to go away and look up the word epoch, and I looked it up in the 1939 dictionary. It hasn't actually changed much, but in the 1939 dictionary, the definition was a period of time made special by someone or something. How prophetic that line turned out to be. Dr. Silkworth probably had no idea. It may mark anew. It certainly did, didn't it? These men may well have a remedy for thousands of such situations. Again, what a prophetic line. You may rely absolutely on anything they say about themselves. Yours, very truly yours, William D. Silkworth, MD. In the first edition of our big book, it didn't say William D. Silkworth, MD. This is a facsimile copy of the first edition of the book. And in the first edition of the book, that letter just simply says signed blank. There's just a blank space, MD. And that shows back then this was a controversial view for any physician, a man of science in the day, to start saying things like, well, maybe only a spiritual solution is. He could have been deemed a crackpot or a quack, and doctors like that got struck off. There was a very definite. Although many men of science and doctors were religious and went to church and did all those things, they very much separated that from the science side of things. So for the doctor to have written it back then, it was controversial. Later on, in subsequent printings, once more doctors had gone, we agree. Doctor was agreed to have his name on there. I think would have probably quite liked to have his name on there. The physician who at our request gave us this letter has been kind enough to enlarge upon his views in another statement which follows. In this statement he confirms what we who have suffered alcoholic torture must believe. Must believe. Anyone that tells you there are no musts in the big book, there are hundreds of them. The body of the alcoholic is quite as abnormal as his mind. It did not satisfy us to be told that we could not control our drinking just because we were maladjusted to life, that we were in full flight from reality or were outright mental defectives. These things were true to some extent, in fact to a considerable extent to some of us, and I don't think any of us realise just how batshit crazy we are when we get here. I really didn't. I thought I had it together. I was well separated from reality and getting close to being an outright mental defective for sure. But we are sure that our bodies were sickened as well. In our belief, any picture of the alcoholic which leaves out this physical factor is incomplete. The doctor's theory that we have an allergy to alcohol interests us. As laymen, our opinion as to its soundness may of course mean little. But as ex-problem drinkers, we can say that his explanation makes good sense. It explains many things for which we cannot otherwise account. And incidentally, just in that little bit read there, where it says, but as ex-problem drinkers, that's when people say, oh, we must never change the first 164. That's one of the changes that was made and is documented. In the first edition, it said as ex-alcoholics, and they realised very quickly that implied we could be cured. And we can't be. There is no cure for this. We can recover, but we will always be alcoholics. So in future printings, that got changed to as ex-problem drinkers, and quite rightly too. Though we work out our solution on the spiritual as well as the altruistic plane, we favour hospitalisation for the alcoholic who is very jittery or befogged. More often than not, it is imperative that a man's brain be cleared before he is approached, as he then has a better chance of understanding and accepting what we have to offer. It's an interesting thing that when they very first wrote this, they were dealing with low-bottom drunks. They were dealing with people that had no choice but to go through detox in their view. And in actual fact, it wasn't until 1939 that we had the first case of an alcoholic who recovered without going through a medical detox. And it, at the time, we can find this out in history books about AA, caused a right furore, because there were a lot of people in AA that were going, well, if he's not that low bottom, he'll never stick with this. he'll never stick with it because, you know, he doesn't know how bad it's been. Because he hasn't been that bad, he won't recover. But he did. So Warren C. was the first case in 1939 who wasn't hospitalised, but followed these steps to the letter and recovered fully and died sober. So there you go, a little bit of history there as well for you. The doctor writes, the subject presented in this book seems to be of paramount importance to those afflicted with alcoholic addiction. I say this after many years' experience as medical director of one of the oldest hospitals in the country treating alcoholic and drug addiction. So William D. Silkworth was working at Towns Hospital, and William Silkworth was one of probably the leading, but certainly one of the leading experts on this. He had dedicated a massive amount of his life to trying to work out what would treat alcohol, and he went to work with this guy. Charlie Towns was the guy that founded Towns Hospital. So in a moment, when we get to the bit where they talk about we reluctantly consented to let Bill loose on people, that's who it's talking about, William Silkworth and Charlie Towns. There was therefore a sense of real satisfaction when I was asked to contribute a few words on a subject which is covered in such masterly detail in these pages. And by then, Dr. Silkworth had been given a copy of the early manuscript version of what this book was to become. We doctors have realised for a long time that some form of moral psychology, that's basically brain work, right, was of urgent importance to alcoholics, but its application presented difficulties beyond our conception. With what our ultra-modern standards, our scientific approach to everything, we are perhaps not well equipped to apply the powers of good that lie outside our synthetic knowledge. Controversial thing for a doctor to say, a man of science, to go, you know what, we've got all this medical stuff, we've got all of that, we've got that, but actually we think you've got to look outside for something else as well. And that was the really controversial thing that he was saying back then. Many years ago, one of the leading contributors to this book came under our care in this hospital, and while here he acquired some ideas which he put into practical application at once. Later, he requested the privilege of being allowed to tell his story to other patients here, and with some misgiving we consented. So that was Silkworth and Towns. He went to those two, and they reluctantly went, well, okay. The cases we have followed through have been most interesting. In fact, many of them are amazing. The unselfishness of these men as we have come to know them, the entire abstinence of profit motive, and their community spirit is indeed inspiring to one who has laboured long and wearily in this alcoholic field. They believe in themselves and still more in the power. Notice a capital P on power there. It's talking about a power that comes from something greater than us. Back then they would have directly called it God. But that when you see power appear with an uppercase P, they're talking about power that comes from a place greater than us. Typically that power of God, of a higher power, of a God of our understanding, which pulls chronic alcoholics back from the gates of death. Of course, an alcoholic ought to be freed from his physical craving for liquor, and this often requires a definite hospital procedure before the psychological measures can be of maximum benefit. We believed, and so suggested a few years ago, that the action of alcohol on these chronic alcoholics is a manifestation of an allergy, that the phenomenon of craving is limited to this class and never, I've got that underlined, occurs in the average temperate drinker. This is the thing that starts to differentiate the alcoholic from the normal drinker. And where it says we believe and so suggested a few years ago, it made me wonder where that was. And I found out. Dr. Silkworth had written a paper in March 1937 called Alcohol Manifestation of an Allergy. Was one of the first medical peer-reviewed papers to be written that pointed out that alcohol or suggested that alcohol was an allergy. And then it obviously didn't mention any spiritual approach, didn't know about that then, and he wouldn't have done it with a medical paper. But Dr. Silk was, again, so instrumental in the understanding, his understanding of this being an allergy, him and a handful of others, that if they hadn't put that down and put it out there, these allergic types can never safely use alcohol in any form at all, and once having formed the habit and found they cannot break it, once having lost their self-confidence, their reliance upon things human, their problems pile up on them and become astonishingly difficult to solve. And I think most of us have had that experience. For me, my early days of drinking were great. I thought I'd found a magic potion, a solution to blimmin' everything. It seemed to solve all my problems, and then it didn't, and I kept chasing the thing that solved the problems, and that sweet spot got smaller and smaller and finally non-existent, and then I lost my self-confidence. I couldn't do anything without alcohol. I was totally reliant upon it, and my problems did pile up, and I couldn't solve them, and no human could either. And believe me, I tried a lot of things. Anyway, frothy emotional appeal seldom suffices. I love that term, frothy emotional appeal. At one point I had a family begging me to stop drinking. That didn't work. I had doctors telling me I couldn't drink. That didn't work either. The message which can interest and hold these alcoholic people must have depth and weight. In nearly all cases, their ideals must be grounded in a power greater than themselves if they are to recreate their lives. And notice that word there is ideals, it's not ideas. Those are very different things. It's not that our ideas have to be grounded in a power greater than ourselves, it's our ideals, our living forces, the things we live our life by. Those very basic principles have to be grounded in a power greater than ourselves. And just before we get on to the next bit, I just want to pick up on this allergy thing. I often meet people when they first come in the rooms of AA and you're talking to them, and they'll sit there going, well, I don't know that I believe it's an allergy. I don't believe it's a disease. And you know what? It's funny, isn't it? We'll try and deny that. Here's some facts for you about whether or not this is a disease. Because when Dr. Silkworth wrote this letter, this concept was a new idea, this allergy thing and everything else. The World Health Organization classified alcoholism as a disease in 1952. Largely a result of many of the things that came out of the stuff that was done here. The American Psychiatric Association also declared alcoholism a disease in 1952. The AMA, the American Medical Association, they followed suit 4 years later in 1956. I'm not going to make any jokes about Americans always turning up late to anything. So you've got these different, all these different official world bodies, and if you look throughout Western medicine or any English-speaking medicine, I can't tell you about totally foreign ones. I don't speak the language, but you'll certainly find any country that's got the NHS in England, anywhere that's got recognised health bodies, alcoholism is definitely classified as a disease. Well, if it's good enough for them, do we question it? If they told us we got diabetes, we're fine with that being a disease. Heart disease, we're fine with that being a disease. Why? Well, the World Health Organization, well, they say the same about it. It wasn't just, it's now gone on to be so many more that totally get that alcoholism is a disease and that it features basically an allergic type and then a phenomenon of craving which centers in the mind, which we're going to go on and read on about. Where are we on time? I'll go for a few more minutes. If any feel that as psychiatrists directing hospital for alcoholics we appear somewhat sentimental, let them stand with us a while on the firing line, see the tragedies, the despairing wives, the little children. Let the solving of these problems become a part of their daily work and even of their sleeping moments. And the most cynical will not wonder that we have accepted and encouraged this movement. We feel after many years of experience that we have found nothing which has contributed more to the rehabilitation of these men than the altruistic movement now growing among them. Altruistic movement being, we do this for free. There's no financial reward. We don't do it for ego. It's not about, look how many people I've helped get through the program. It's not about recognition. It's not about money. Altruism. It's that giving selflessly and giving of self that that is such a big part of this program and that I so didn't get when I got here. But boy, do I understand it today. And then we have this superb line which sums up exactly why alcoholics like me drink. Men and women drink essentially because they like the effects produced by alcohol. The sensation is so elusive that while they admit it is injurious, they cannot after a time differentiate the true from the false. To them, their alcoholic life seems the only normal one. They are restless, irritable and discontented unless they can again experience the sense of ease and comfort which comes at once by taking a few drinks. Drinks which they see others taking with impunity. After they had succumbed to the desire again, as so many do, and the phenomenon of craving develops, they pass through the well-known stages of spree, emerging remorseful with a firm resolution not to drink again. How many times did I do that? This is repeated over and over, and unless a person can experience an entire psychic change, there is very little hope of his recovery. When I took my first drink, I didn't like the taste. My first proper drink was real ale, and it was a light ale, and it tasted horrible at 13 years old. I hated the taste, but I drank it anyway, and I loved the effect. And that's why I went back for more. I didn't drink. It makes me laugh when people come in and they're saying things like, can I still drink 0% beer? Well, I highly recommend you don't, because it's not zero. There is alcohol in it. I always say that non-alcoholic beer is for non-alcoholics, but, some people do. But here's the thing. Why would you want to? I didn't drink beer because it tasted nice. I didn't drink wine because I love it. I used to pretend I was a connoisseur. Oh, yeah, that smells nice and tastes fruity. I don't give a crap what it tasted like. I was after the effect. And that's what makes me an alcoholic. I drink because I like the effect produced by alcohol, and the sensation was so elusive that even though I could see it was injurious, I would justify it. I can afford my drinking. Oh, I'm okay. I've still got my family. Yeah, at the moment. I lost them eventually, by the way, but, I couldn't differentiate the true from the false. My alcoholism had me so utterly convinced that drinking Andie was the best version of Andie that existed. And that was such a lie, and I couldn't see the lie when I got here. When I first came in, I would come into the rooms and I'd be like, no, but you don't understand. I'm a nice drunk. Everyone says how nice I am when I'm drunk. It's when I'm sober I'm a bastard. I had all these justifications because I couldn't tell the true from the false. I didn't know what was real anymore. Alcohol had robbed me of my ability to see the true from the false. It took away my ability to have feelings. It's such a cunning, baffling, powerful, vicious disease. And my alcoholic life did seem the only one. And boy, am I glad I found the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous so that you beautiful people were able to explain this thing to me and show me that, look, there is a way out. And it says it here. Unless this person can experience an entire psychic change, there is very little hope of his recovery. And I was like, when I got here, I was like, an entire, what the hell is that? In fact, the first question I asked a lady that became my sponsor, a day before she became my sponsor, I called her up and went, my actual words are, what the F is a psychic change? I had no comprehension. But it really is. It is a profound change of everything you think now. It is just like, I don't think the way I used to think, and I'm glad I don't, because my thinking got me drunken in a gutter. My drinking got me screwed and, with nowhere to go. Luckily, my best thinking got me here into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm going to finish with this paragraph because this is the one that gives so much hope. On the other hand, and as strange as this may seem to those who do not understand, once a psychic change has occurred, the very same person who seemed doomed, who had so many problems he despaired of ever solving them, suddenly finds himself easily able to control his desire for alcohol, the only effort necessary, being that required, which is another word for must, isn't it, to follow a few simple rules. And our simple rules are the 12 steps. And then we also have traditions and concepts. We have 36 beautiful spiritual principles we can get behind over time in this program. But it all starts with these 12 steps. And they are what lead us to having this profound psychic change. And you know what? And you'll notice it says there, once a psychic change has occurred, right? Not a change of circumstances. People come into Alcoholics Anonymous and they think, oh yeah, but if I don't lose my wife and if I manage to hang on to that, I'll be okay. And I won't. No, it's not going to make any difference. Changing circumstances makes no difference. We have got to have a profound psychic change. When you've had that change, you'll probably still have all the problems, right? All those circumstances you had that were shit, you're probably still going to have them. The difference is you don't have to drink on them, and you'll have a way of dealing with life on life terms, and you'll be able to face these things. And believe me, it's a beautiful way to live. I know, because I live it every day now. This program saved my life. You guys saved my life. This program changed my life immeasurably and continues to do so. And it can do the same for you. If you are new, if you're back off what we affectionately call a slip or a relapse, please don't muck around with this. It is life and death for us if you're really an alcoholic. If you think you are after hearing some of this today, stick around for fellowship afterwards. But most importantly, get a big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, preferably a print one, because you're going to want to highlight this and colour it in and write in it. Get a big book. Ask someone to be your sponsor, someone that's been through the steps and had the spiritual experience, and you too will have one. It'll be different for everyone, but you will have one. And as a result of that, I promise you, you never have to drink again. Love you all. Thanks so much for letting me share.